Hello there, this is Through Spades, and welcome back to another Rogue Planet 2 devlog. Now today I've got a number of under-the-hood changes, mostly to help with the optimization of the game. Now what I've done is a few things. Now I'm going to show you here project settings. This was something I wanted to show off in the optimization video, but got cut short because my recorder started to die out, but I have improved the minimum performance by lowering the tile size of the virtual textures from 128 to 32 and enabling crunch compression. I also went in using this truck. Now there was actually a blueprint version of it. I believe it's actually this one. There we go. And what I did was I looked for this body model, and then I used it as the basis to create LODs for the various models that are in Rogue Planet here. So this is the highest quality LOD, what it would look like if you're right next to it. There's a slightly lower one. This one's a bit farther away. And then this one's really far away. And it all automatically loads and deloads like this. So there's that last one there. But you wouldn't really be able to tell much at that distance. The biggest kind of giveaway that it's the last LOD is when the ladder has disappeared. Either that or 2. But as you can see, it's kind of been beaten up a bit. And it's a fun little technique that the original Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare kind of ended up making, I mean, not exactly pioneering, but making really famous because it got their game looking great and running at like 60 frames a second, which was totally unheard of for most games that were, a shooter. Now, I'm aiming for more like 120 in this map, and so far I've been able to get that pretty damn well. And it was the clever use of these techniques alongside some others from Halo 5 and Doom in 2016. And as you can see here, the more that the LOD number is raised, the lower quality the model becomes until it kind of looks more like the vague suggestion of a tower as opposed to a real one. But that's the idea, is by the time it's doing those magic tricks, you would never really notice, now would you? Not particularly, no. And if it's an effective trick, well, you're not going to notice that like half the rungs have just turned into, paper mache and all of the stairs are gone. Well, say with a couple exceptions here, but like that's the idea. Is you want to provide a convincing like magic trick or illusion for whoever's going to be playing your game, and that's what I hope to be showing off here. Another thing I've done while I was at it was I went in and started looking for objects that I could deload. For instance, the boards. There are a lot of boards. So I'm going to show the boards and tables. So tables and boards. I'm going to turn the unlit lighting on. Kind of to show you this. Oh yeah, also need to turn on game view, otherwise it's not going to properly show the disappearing tables and stuff. But as you can see with the outlines of the tables that are in the building, I go up a bit and well, hold on. Yeah, those disappear as well. I've also made some of this disappear and some of the others, but the outlines there, you'll notice how boards off in the distance are deloading. This is a view distance trick that I've found with Unreal Engine 4. And what you could do is you could go and set a max desired draw distance, and using some simple math and coupling that with the LOD system and the virtual texture system, and disabling cast shadows, and then you turn the default RHI to Vulkan. I'm able to get like 100 frames a second. Now I still need to go in and optimize it because some areas are kind of inefficient, but there were some areas like these trees here where I couldn't exactly hide it entirely, but it did give me an idea. So these trees need to deload at a certain point, and so does like that castle and about half the map if you're, like over here. But that's the thing, is you don't really need to see the back half of this castle hardly. I mean, the only time you would really need to see it is if you're in this area. So I started looking around at models that could be like, gimped out here to deload, and came up with a rough solution to where, as you can see, it starts phasing in and out. But in the actual game, and thanks to this texture filtering stuff, where it kind of almost makes this blurry wall that you can't see through, you wouldn't really be able to tell now, would you? It's not exactly very clear when you look through that. That half of the map over here has just been deloaded and vice versa. So it's not loading the entire map all the time, and nor should it be. And that's kind of the thing, is if you're doing your job right, nobody's going to know you're doing anything at all. And that's kind of the best part with making this magic trick, is see how the signs disappear and stuff like that? If it's an effective illusion, little details like those, I mean, they're bright, but that's the thing, is you wouldn't really notice it too much if you're over here behind the smoke, or seeing 500 bright ashes and bits of fire. Right here, where this, traffic thing here is where they pop in. And with these signs, and these caution restricted area signs, if I can actually get it to select the one I want, if I show you these, the other side, well, they don't really need to be loaded now, do they? So little details like those deload. A lot of this deloads as well. And another thing I've done is with the fire, I went in and I actually added some lens flare, kind of haze effect, and a shitload of smoke, like black smoke that pollutes the sky and goes up into the atmosphere. And as well as that, I decided to revamp the skybox after messing around with what I'm calling Santa Fe Lava Lamp, because I was able to successfully remake the Santa Fe map in a manner that I was pretty happy with. But enough talking about optimization stuff. I'm going to just show you. And you're probably going to like the results in action if it doesn't crash on me. Which is the only weird oddity of this, is I'm not sure what's causing it, but sometimes when I boot into the standalone editor here to play test it, it'll crash. Though I have been testing out some other recorders, so I imagine it's probably one of them. Okay, lucky me. We're good. So, another thing I'm doing is making an extended graphics menu. Now, one thing I don't like in games is when they say it's advanced graphics when they really mean just fine-tune the graphics. So, like, which setting do you specifically want over here? See, this is pretty well laid out. That's all you need to tell me. Here's apply options and go back to the pause menu. Now, another thing I'm going to apply is the frame rate. So you can see how well these little tweaks and LOD bits of optimization goodness are helping. Now, when I'm not recording, I was able to take a few screenshots, and it was getting upwards of about 130 to 140 FPS. But generally, it seemed to really buckle, like when they ragdolled, but that's why they despawn. That, and like when I zoom in here, and there's a bunch of zombies and other stuff, so. The deloading and loading system seems to work pretty well. Though there are a few problem areas, such as this part of the map, where if you start having a fight over here, the frame rate might get a little iffy. But otherwise, you can make do. So, there we are. There's a lens flare on the fire. Kind of at least a harsh glow to it. There's smoke that goes up into the sky and into the atmosphere. You can see that there are millions of ashes in the atmosphere. Those are not stars, and those are not clouds. That is smoke and fire all around you. Kind of just showing you in scale how tiny you are and how hopeless the situation is, which is something that, unfortunately, ever since the end of the Xbox 360, far, 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 far too many fucking games are just afraid of doing. I guess out of the fear of being actually entertaining, you know, because it's almost like the games where you shoot each other. The whole entertaining bit is, you know, the danger. Well, I don't think there's much of a way out of this, so naturally you're going to fight for your life. What's left of it, anyway. So, I'm going to get like a fucking triple kill collat on these motherfuckers, and we're going to have ourselves a jolly fun old time here. With some judge. There we go. So, EA. YTP noises are really funny to make. Bye-bye. They have decided to use the piss pistol. But that's the thing is, you're noticing how when I am here and looking at almost the entire map, the frame rate isn't really buckling as much thanks to all of these little draw distance and optimization tweaks. Before, when I was playtesting this, it was dipping down into the 60s. Now there are still some parts where it does do that. However, they have been significantly decreased. When I get into combat, you'll notice that when I am shooting zombies and they are ragdolling, it no longer goes down and dips in frame rate as much. Now there's some weird issues, like when you zoom in with the gun, that it does. But like, I'm also doing this cool fucking explosion effect, and then they despawn, and then it goes right back up. So I imagine it has more to do with ragdoll simulations than anything. Because it has to do about 7 things at once, and then rapidly deload them. So, as we can see, we're getting about 80, 90, and about 100 frames a second, 9 milliseconds of input response time there. And it's, you know, constantly fluctuating as it would with, like, you know, a crazy environment like this. But the point is, when you stacked all of these optimization techniques, a 12-year-old CPU, or a CPU from 2012 that's 13 years old as of recording, and a GPU from 2017, that's 8 years, can get 100 frames a second with DDR3 RAM on Unreal Engine 4. Well, think about that. If this is the kind of performance that a, let's say, decade, 11-year-old PC, if we average that out, can get, well, gee, it sounds like there's quite a lot of upward momentum for higher-end computers. Like, if you got a high-end computer, well, this shit is going to run like fucking nobody's business. And if you got a lower-end computer, well, hey, you actually have a somewhat playable and optimized game for once. Is it going to hit 100 frames a second? Maybe not, but it's still going to get 60. And I would expect that bare minimum by the standards of the Xbox One. But it's not what I got for a lot of games. And, you know, the sacrifice in texture filtering is something that is so minor and barely noticeable unless you put your nose right up to your TV and started smelling it. That's the only time I think I noticed, because the game's graphics just looked really good, and the lighting and all of the other stuff hit it pretty convincingly. So there's that. I'm also going to show you how when you go in here, right, there's a bunch of optimization being done with constantly loading and deloading items. So that fridge is still there because I've got the LOD set up right. Now the thing is, there is one thing that's just kind of whatever, and it's like the games do disappear and so do the shelves. But the reason why I didn't fade it, like, the reason why I actually just, like, I think about here, cut them out, is because that was taking up quite a lot of resources, and kind of there wasn't an easy way around it. So one failing of it is, yeah, if you just look in the door there, you'll see them all fade away. But does that really matter when you get about 100 frames a second or 90 frames? I think that's a small sacrifice in the grander scheme of the actual performance and how many computers could be playing this game, hypothetically, with a little LOD kind of deloading system being used here to help boost minimum frame rates. And of course the devil's in the details. It's not like these details are removed, it's just that you can't see them too far away to help optimize the game. This is something that other games like Left 4 Dead 2 did pretty well, and that game still looks like black magic to me. I'm shocked they managed to make something that looked and ran as good as they did in like 2009 or some shit. That was pretty wild. But yeah, that's the thing. You kind of eventually see things like that, and you realize, when you realize that those tricks were made to last, and, the funniest thing about it is, if computers get better, well, why should technology get worse? That seems really, really counterproductive. Like, if you have all of this great technology, and you have all of these easy optimizations that one guy could do in about 20 minutes, because he has to compile all of the maps to now work on Vulkan automatically just by waiting, that's actually really good. Like, seriously, that is really fucking good. Why the fuck are people abandoning this engine for Unreal 5? Honestly, it beats me. I think they just put a 5 on it and people liked it. Oh, well, all this temporal anti-aliasing makes it better. Not for this game. Temporal anti-aliasing would absolutely disintegrate all of these ashes. It would look awful. But meanwhile, I've got a little FXAA tweak that a little bit of research and Patreon money from Thread Interactive, he was able to uncover some pretty neat shit. So thanks to Thread Interactive for this find. I went into where I installed my Unreal Engine, and he left a comment pinned, and he talked about FXAA being pretty neglected. It's a great video. The top 10 most neglected areas of graphics rendering or something like that. And he put a comment saying you could go to your Unreal Engine 4 or even 5 installation, because this works on Unreal Engine 5. The logic's the same. They've just broken a lot of stuff on Unreal 5 to sell you new graphics cards that don't run this stuff well either. But what you can do is you can go to your program files, Epic Games, Unreal 4.26 in my case, but you can also do Unreal 5. Engine shaders private. You're going to look for this file, fxaa shader.usf. And you're going to go down to the bottom. There's going to be a bit of text here that says, like, FXAA quality subpics. You're going to completely remove that, and you're going to just type 0.0. And then you're going to get, you're going to restart your Unreal Engine. And then you're going to go back in, and obviously, of course, you need to have in your project settings, FXAA enabled. I also do light units by unit lists, because candelas and lumens are a waste of computer resources. And I also just do this, so that seems to work. But that being said, when you stack all of that stuff on top of each other, every little bit helps. And whereas before in other videos I was having some stutters and freezes, and while playtesting to make sure that you could actually go and get into the secret room here, I was having some issues with the game outright freezing up on me because of how many zombies I was killing and how many resources it was taking. Now, it wasn't so much the zombies that were taking up so many resources, but a bunch of models that were not deloading properly. And after going and optimizing the draw distance and the LODs to make them deload properly, well, you could see some much better results. Now, it's, you know, kind of just a brute force tactic, but it does work. Because if you're not going to see the shit, well, that's the thing about it, is it's not there. See, like that, right? The idea is that at a certain distance, that stops rendering. Now, is this a foolproof thing? No, I could probably do a little bit better, but honestly, if it gets you 100 frames a second locked almost while fighting zombies, then I'm gonna give you 100 frames a second locked almost while fighting a ton of zombies, even if that means a few objects in the distance might pop in and out. So that's nothing. I don't think anyone really cares too much about that. What you are going to care about, though, is that you've got a new Santa Fe map, because I was able to remake it. Let me show you. I'm going to go unlit here. I'm just going to fly. So, I found out the problem with Santa Fe was they had this absolutely massive foliage actor. And I was able to successfully delete the landscape that was also overdrawing to infinity and beyond. And after trimming it way the hell down, I decided to kind of go a little more Halo style and make a quite literal Blood Gulch. So welcome to what's left of the Santa Fe rescue team. I'm afraid the only survivors are the ones who want to kill. Not the kinds of people you'd want to see giving you a life preserver out in the ocean. More like sharks. Swimming in the water right below the life raft that's currently being deflated because one of them took a little love bite out of it. And I think that might be the shark right there. But yeah, this map does run a lot better. It is not going to hit 100 frames a second. In most of my testing without recording, it was hitting about 80 to 90. Though I'm fine with that simply because I've got like 8 headlamps and about 15 machine guns. Not to mention buildings and other stuff. So, there are a few concessions that had to be made, such as the draw distance for some of the buildings. They kind of just pop in at certain angles, but I tried to kind of at least mitigate that with trucks and rocks. And also was able to salvage the sunset. Now, there's one thing I am going to be doing that Ubisoft and other companies, when they do big changes like this, usually don't. I am going to be keeping those older versions. So that way you have some bonus maps, just because it's like, okay, well, you know, I already worked on it, so if it doesn't work, then I'm really not going to be fucked to optimize them. It's like, do you want me to tear out this leech in the map? It's connected to its heart, its spine, its both legs, its arms, and its head. basically, if I did that, I would have another broken map. Up to you if you want to play with it, but like, do so at your own risk. It's not something that I'm gonna ever screw around with again because I guess Keelan is the way you pronounce his name. I'm not sure, but he added about 6,000 instanced foliage actors, all casting shadows. Keelan, what the fuck? That is hella unoptimized. That is just unacceptable. The amount of shadow overdraw is enough to fill the black voids of outer space. It was absurd, so I just had to pretty much up and remove that entire thing and then redo most of, not all of the geometry in here to make it more tolerable. That being said, it's one of the more demanding maps of the game, so definitely do expect lag spikes, but this is also why I am currently working on a graphics menu that's been extended. My plan is to add more than just these. If you played the first game, or have seen my gameplay of it, you'll know that there was a metric fuckload of graphics options. Now, I do want to actually add a proper, advanced graphics menu for this, so you could go in and you could mess around with all the graphics and stuff. So you could have like every crazy setting in the post-processing you could just mess around with. I mean, short of some like debug and, wall hack stuff. Like, I do want people to, use reshade and tinker and screw around with the graphics of my game, because that's cool. You get to create new visuals and do something totally different with something that I made. That's part of the fun of modding games and, adding replayability for people who want to enjoy a game longer term. And I feel as if me making an obscene, over-the-top graphics menu with a ton of options was kind of a natural extension of that idea with modding, where you as the user are in control of the way that you wish to customize the game. And I decided to do that with the visuals, although I couldn't do it with much else, because like Game Guru was, you could modify almost damn near anything visually, but audio, yeah, get the fuck out. You're leaving. You actually want to add volume mixing and music volume for your game? You're out of your fucking mind. Get this asshole out of here. And they fucking blacklisted me for wanting a God Ray fix, so who's laughing now? I got God rays like that. And I got smoke and fire and lightning and ashes. Headlamps, so they all move dynamically. Yeah, Game Guru, eat shit and die. Better use this fucking fossil fuels, because that fucking piece of shit was a dinosaur. Good learning experience, though. I can't exactly recommend it. It's like building a monster big wheel that goes down the highway at 60 miles an hour. You're going to have an interesting conversation with the cops that, ends with, "Eat lead, motherfucker, or bite my dust, bitch." And then you fucking zoom down the hall, go on down the highway with your fucking janky-ass big wheel. Eat my dust, bitch. You get the idea. But, yeah, I've got some pretty cool little techniques and tricks. Also in the HESCO, I did do some LOD stuff. So this LOD system has been applied to quite a fair few amount of models in an attempt to kind of ensure that the game can dynamically load in and load out a lot of things to give you a steady frame rate while there's a bunch of fancy effects going on. Now, Unreal Engine does have quite a lot of really in-depth systems, and it's really intricate, but the problem is, once again, like Game Guru, people aren't using them, and they're just shitting out quick, first little games they want to sell for $30 on Steam. It's the same shit that's happening with Game Guru, but with Unreal 5. Nobody can run these games. They just buy an asset pack off the store, and they don't do any unique maps or levels or things like this. The only thing that's the same is this landscape, those buildings, and that building. Otherwise, totally just erased everything, built right a new level on top of it. That and I mean, no, actually, that was it. Just straight up like 3 buildings, a bed, a TV, yeah, some beds, some TVs, and then that's it. Like, even then, I modified this building or removed some of these, and then did a whole like LOD system on the building and distance. So I literally went through here, manually did different LODs. I spent about a few hours getting this system all sorted for some of the models. Now, it's still not complete, and it's something I'm going to have to get back to tomorrow and, whenever else. But, yeah, so the models eventually get lower in quality as you get further and further away. Something like that. So by the time it starts creaking sideways and, deteriorating eventually, that's the last step when it creaks up to the right there. Basically, as you can see. Well, you can't see because it's not on game mode. Oh, there we go. It loads them in and deloads them in. So, same technique as a lot of early Xbox One games, but it's efficient. And it's going to allow for a lot more computers than otherwise a lot of these newer Unreal Engine games would, because the problem with them is that they're not deloading their things in an attempt really more so to force out older computers and coerce you into buying new ones that you don't need. Like we have a Titan XP, for instance, from 2017, is an NVIDIA graphics card that costs $200 and has about 12 gigabytes of VRAM. You can do with that information as you please. And I gotta say, that for $200, that's a fucking steal. Because most games I play on that shit, I play like a king, so it's pretty awesome. Don't tell nobody, it's my secret. My secret and your secret now. Feed the people, and that's how you make friends. So that's the idea. So yeah, there's a few optimization tricks, a bunch of other cool little things, and yeah, kind of just been doing some under the hood stuff and remaking maps. And as for the other Santa Fe maps, those being the actual normal one, the lava lamp, which was the first remake. And then Atlantis, you get that means basically because of this whole kerfuffle here, you get 3 new maps. So that's awesome. I'm gonna do a proper second Atlantis remake with the actual city here. Probably have some glowy bits and jellyfish and sharks. So stay tuned for that. You're not gonna want to miss it. In the meantime, I'm gonna see if I can finish that graphics menu and hopefully show it off next time. But until then, that'll do it for this Rogue Planet 2 devlog. So thanks for watching, and have a good one. And also don't forget that I do have a Discord, and I can't exactly do this without people sharing it around. So if you could share it around, and if you actually like the videos, leave comments and sub and, interact, because it's a social media platform, for fuck's sake. That'd be nice. Later.